I feel it's very important to make this video, and I just want to air my concerns, and I hope it spurs people on to ask questions, to think through what I'm saying, and that we come to some conclusions that are based on evidence and reason and truth. Um, there will be lots of Bible teaching, lots of studies and lectures, and lots of things coming up in the next few days and weeks ahead. Um, but I feel like this video is important, and I'm continuing to push on this and continuing to, in my own small way, add to the pressure of people wanting to challenge the mainstream media and the attack upon our freedoms. I was reading the other day that the New York Governor Andrew Cuomo is pushing to produce a law within New York, him and his commissioners. And this law um, is a very general law, and basically it states that anybody who seems a threat, anybody or any group that seems to a threat to the state's health can be immediately arrested and put in a health facility, which is really a prison, for 2 months without any legal recourse whatsoever. The only people who get to say whether you go into this basic prison is basically Cuomo and the commissioners. When I read this, I nearly fell off my chair. I was really, really, really disgusted and concerned for our Western democracies and Western civilization. Do you realize what the implications of that is? It's supposed to be coming in because of, hello, Andy Jack, God bless you. Happy New Year to you, bro. It's supposed to be a law that's going to be brought in to protect people's health against coronavirus. But can't people see what the implications of that is? The implication is that Cuomo and these commissioners could decide that you are a threat, that you are a threat. You could be arrested without any legal recourse and incarcerated for 2 months on the basis of Cuomo and his commissioners. Can't anybody see that this coronavirus is bringing in communism? Because that kind of power should only be taken by fascists. It shouldn't be known in a democracy. In a democracy, you should have legal course to go before the courts to give your case. You can't just be arrested on the whim of a governor and some commissioners. This reminds me of the time of Chairman Mao. So if the West wants its nation states to be fascist, then follow the way of Cuomo. Now, why have I done it particularly on the New York governor, Cuomo? It's because all along the line in Western civilization at the moment, the cracks, the cracks are concerning our Western democracies. The cracks are beginning to open wide, and the foundations in our Western civilization and Western democracies crumbling. The fact that a New York governor thinks it's reasonable to pass a law where he and commissioners can decide on a group or an individual are a threat to public health, to have them arrested and incarcerated without any legal recourse, The fact that a governor in New York can do that means that that is going to be a trend to spread across the Western Hemisphere. And this is I just think about this for a second. In most Western nations at the moment, you are not allowed. Today, the other day, Boris Johnson in the UK announced a nationwide lockdown. In that nationwide lockdown, it is becoming law that you cannot visit anybody, only one person. Now, I understand that they're trying to save public health and everything, and they're trying to save people public health. But I strongly believe, I really strongly believe, and I believe reason and evidence is on my side. I really believe that we moved away from democracy and we moved into communism because the rhetoric and the language should be these are the rules, you're adults, you do what is right and reasonable. But the rhetoric and the language has moved from you're an adult, you make your decisions according to the rules, to you will obey this, you will stay at home, you will close your business down, you will. And I think this is a bad language, and I think this is a bad precedent. I really, really do, and I think that we've allowed communism in the back door. In America, in Britain, in Australia, in Canada, in Germany, in Holland, I believe we've allowed communism in the back door. Um, so this directive, this law that Cuomo, I think any day it might have been brought in today, but any day they're bringing this in New York, this law, they're bringing it in. And it's a fascist law because you have no legal recourse whatsoever. You have no legal recourse. You will be arrested on the whim of the governor and the commissioners, and you'll be put in prison. They say it's a health facility, but you'll be put in prison for 2 months, and you have no way of getting out until end of that 2 months. Then you can have some legal representation. I think this is absolutely disgraceful. And if Cuomo's doing it, that means other states and cities will be doing it in America, which means if it's happening in America, it's certainly going to happen in Britain, it's certainly going to happen in Australia, it's certainly going to happen in Canada. And I can list a huge number of issues that are very concerning in our Western democracies at the moment, which are not democracies. And I'm going to continue to say this because I think it's needed. In Australia, there was a man putting out bins at 10 o'clock at night. The police came out and told him to get back in his house because there was a curfew because of the COVID-19. A man putting out bins at night, police telling him to get back in. I think that's disgraceful. A lady in Australia was on a road with a sign, and it was saying honk if you agree. And so people drove past, they saw the sign, and it was about whether you would like the Prime Minister of Australia or not. She was on her own, nobody was around, she was just on a street, and people drove and they honked their horns, or they didn't. Police came, told her to get in. She was fined. Another example in Australia, a woman was organising a COVID-19, anti-COVID-19 rally, lockdown rally. The police came to her house and they arrested her with the kids in the house because they saw it on Facebook. This is 1984 kind of stuff. Another example is a guy in Canada who owned a restaurant. People wanted to come to his restaurant. The police came, they've closed it down, stopped him, and arrested him. a church in Cardiff. They were worshipping, and the police came in. They didn't have the respect to wait. They just went in, stopped the worship meeting, and shut down the church. Can't people see that this is nothing to do with coronavirus? That this is something sinister. Can't people put the two and two together and see that this is nothing to do about health? This is to do about controlling people. Because if it wasn't about controlling people, why not just say to the woman in Australia, look, love, I know you got this sign, but could you just be a bit wary because, this COVID-19 spreading? Or, excuse me, the guy in Canada, um, yeah, you're wearing masks, you're doing social distancing in your restaurant. Okay, fine, great. Um, the guy who was putting out his bins, are you all right, mate? You're putting out your bins, no worries, nobody's around. That's the kind of policing that you need, not this draconian, um, vicious kind of policing that we're seeing, which, by incidentally, all that they're saying about the coronavirus and everything at the moment in Britain, for example, that there's a new strand here and a new strand in South Africa. Just to put some meat on the bones here, always remember that we had for months and months the BLM rioting with no masks, no social distance, and all these leftist politicians were happy about it, didn't say anything about coronavirus then, when coronavirus was at its height. And I had one friend who's a dear friend and I respect him highly, said, well, it was in the open air. It's irrelevant. It's irrelevant whether it was in the open air. The fact of the matter is the far left politicians and politicians generally allowed the BLM to riot with no social distance, with no mask, at the height of the coronavirus, and nothing was said about it. And yet they're stopping people having their businesses, they're stopping people worshipping, they're stopping people from having even free speech in this situation. Um, so coming back to this Cuomo situation in New York, I think it's very, very highly dangerous. I think it's ushering in 1984. There was a book written about 1984 that it would be a totalitarian state. Uh, so you have all these pockets of police arresting people in Canada, Australia, America, and Britain, Germany, if they disagree with the coronavirus. And the policing is vicious. The policing has been absolutely vicious. The policing to the British, in the British situation, has been ferocious, and it's been more on the basis of a military state, the way the police have conducted themselves, the way they were marching in threes like the army down at Speaker's Corner a few days ago, the way they punch and kick and smash people's heads in when they're arresting these people who disagree with the lockdown. There's something sinister and vicious the way they're conducting themselves. It's very, very, very concerning. The fact that Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and other social media have decided that they will decide what the truth is now. So anybody who does not accord to the mainstream narrative, you can be taken off YouTube, you can be taken off Facebook, you can be taken off Twitter. This is very, very concerning. This is communism that's coming. All across the board on the social media, communism. The police, the way they conduct themselves, communism. The politicians are making these draconian laws without any reason or rationality. These draconian lockdowns without any reason or rationality. It's rooted in a bioscience. They're not allowing other scientists to come into the public arena and debate these issues. There are many, many, many scientists who disagree with these lockdowns. Many, many scientists. But they're not being allowed to have the opinion on the situation. They're being silenced. But there are tens of thousands of doctors and virologists who completely disagree with these lockdowns that are going on around the Western Hemisphere. And it's mainly in the West, although they say about South Africa, but it's mainly in the West because the West is the economic powerhouse and it's the West that they want to destroy. But these draconian lockdowns are principally in the West, and we're not getting. We're told that there's a new strand. I've not seen the science. They've not produced the science. This is pumped out by the media, such as the BBC, which is notoriously lacks any credibility now because it's such a woke outfit that is pushing a certain agenda. So we're not getting the true information. And then recently in the Daily Mail, I think it was today actually, an article about Ofcom. Ofcom, for those who don't know, is a government outfit that um, kind of watches over the media and public discourse. And they put out a statement that about what hate speech is. And just to backtrack here, a lot of governments in the West have made statements and laws about hate speech, which are arbitrary and are really there to promote a far left, woke kind of morality. So any other morality, whether it be Christian morality or anything that does not accord with this woke kind of far left morality, is deemed as hate speech. But Ofcom have made a statement, and it's been a gift to these woke witch hunters that are all over the internet, who are hunting everybody down. And the point is that you've got this organization of the government that is to watch over the public discourse, and yet basically they're not encouraging free speech and debate, but they're really shutting down free speech and debate because they're regarding it as hate speech. So let us, for argument's sake, say that this pandemic is as bad as they say, which I don't think it is, to be honest. I think that there are so many holes and contradictions in the mainstream narrative um, that I don't think it is. If you analyze the COVID rules of the lockdowns and you analyze them, they're inconsistent and they don't make sense. So, for example, you got the British government recently, the last couple of days, saying kids can go to school, but yet they're saying at the same time this new strand is 70% more catchable. So why would you want to send kids to school and yet it's 70% more catchable? And then you've got the teachers and the teachers union saying no, the kids shouldn't go to school, right? And then the government backing down. But the government was pushing the kids should go to school, yet at the same time saying that the COVID-19 is 70% more powerful to catch. It doesn't make sense because all right, the kids might not get ill with it, but they could catch it and pass it on to other people. It's 70% more powerful in catching it. You see, the mainstream narrative, there's holes in it. You can just see the contradiction after contradiction after contradiction. I've gone into detail how I think that all this lockdown is not rational, it's not reasonable, it's not logical, it's not going to get rid of a pandemic, so-called pandemic. It's just not going to do it. A lockdown is not going to do it. The only thing that a lockdown will do is destroy the society that you're doing it. The elderly will get, many of the elderly are dying early, prematurely, because they're not getting the medical care that they need because they have to stay in. You can't even go and see your doctor in Britain. because you've got to phone your doctor. So how's that going to play with the elderly or people with cancer or people who've got real physical ailments and illnesses? They're going to die prematurely because they're not getting looked after. If I wanted to see a doctor, I can't see a doctor. I've got to phone the doctor and then take a picture of the problem, whatever it is. How crazy is that? So the lockdowns, it's not logical. There's no logic to it. The only logic to these lockdowns is they'll destroy the nation states. That's the only logic. If you shut down all the businesses and make everybody stay in, like the British government has done, the only thing that that will do is destroy the nation state. And it will destroy it in an inexorable way. You will never get back what you've destroyed. But that aside, whether I am right or wrong, whether I'm sorry to hear that, Andy, that you've lost your business, bro. Whether I am right or wrong, let me ask you some questions. Do you think it's right for the New York governor, Andrew Cuomo, to, to press for passing a law where he can arrest you or your family or your church if he deems you a health threat and you have no legal recourse and you can be locked up for 2 months? Do you think that is a power that a local government should have? I don't think that's a power that the local government should have. Do you think it's right for the British police to arrest people because they disagree with the lockdown and to be punched in the head, smashed in the head, and treated as if you are vile criminals when all you are doing is standing up for your businesses, freedom of worship, and freedom of speech? Do you think that's right? Do you think that's right that an elderly person who you're trying to save from COVID-19, who might be dying of cancer, can't see their doctor and may die prematurely? Do you think that's right? Do you think it's right that a business owner of a restaurant or taxi service has to stay in and then they can't pay their mortgage, they can't pay their bills, and they get so depressed they commit suicide? Do you think that's right? Or because you want to save people from a virus? Do you think that's right? The cure is more damaging, far more damaging. The cure is far more damaging than disease itself. You're doing far more damage to the nation and to the health of the nation than the psychological damage you're doing to young people, the psychological damage you're doing to business owners, the economic, physical, spiritual damage you're doing to the nation is crazy. Do you know that hotels have been taking Gideon Bibles out because they believe that that would be pushing coronavirus? Do you see how sinister this is? Communism getting rid of the Bibles from from hotels because they believe it will be spreading the coronavirus. Do you see we could be possibly setting ourselves up for fascism, communism? Now I may be wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this coronavirus is as bad as they say it is. But even if it is, which I don't think I'm wrong, I think I'm right. I think all the evidence. The problem with the British people is you need to move away. You need to move away from the BBC, the ITV, Channel 4, and you need to go to alternative media to get the true news, the true facts. And the sad is the British public is still wedded to the BBC, although the BBC is losing its credibility rapidly. But the sad fact of the matter is that the British public are still stuck to the mainstream media. They need to move away from the mainstream media because they are lying to you. They are lying through their teeth. The statistics are not what you should be. For example, for example, just one example. Those under 60 that have died in the last few months from COVID-19, those under 60, is 388. That's a fact. That's not an invention. That's a fact. Those under 60 is 388. So you're destroying tens of thousands, if not millions of people's lives because of 388 people's deaths. Now, though every one of those deaths is precious, every one of those deaths is it's a tragedy, but it's 388. It's not 388,000. It's 388. You've decided to destroy a nation and the people in that nation for 388 people. If it was 388,000, maybe you've got an argument. But there are people dying of far more than 388, of cancer, of suicide, of all sorts of other issues. But we're not shutting down the nation because of those deaths. Now, I'm not saying that the coronavirus isn't real and that it's not killing people, and it's certainly killing people over 60, a lot of people over 60. But it's not as bad as the media keep stoking up the fear. There's no rational debate within Parliament. There's no rational debate in Congress. There's no rational debate in Australian Parliament or in Canadian Parliament when it comes to these laws. They're rushed through quickly without any proper due consideration. It's rushed through without any real opposition. What is my education qualifications in this regard? Are everybody listening to my qualifications? Listen to my qualifications. Listen now. These are my qualifications for this. It's the best qualification you can have. It's the greatest qualification you can have in this situation. Are you ready for my qualification? So what is my qualification for all this issue and for the things that I'm saying? Here it is. Do you want to hear it? Are you ready for it? I'm going to give you my qualification, and it's the qualification that all of you need. And if you applied and got this qualification, it will help you immensely in this situation. Do you know what it is? It's called the Socratic method. It's called asking questions. It's called rational thinking, rational discourse. It's called free speech. It's called free speech, rational discourse, the Socratic method, asking questions. It's simple as. And those people on the side of the COVID-19 are against rational discourse, they're against free speech, and they're against looking into the facts and the evidence. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter are shutting down any books, any major person that speaks out against these lockdowns, they're shutting them down. I advocate rational discourse, free speech, and looking into it, and the Socratic method. The politicians are not exercising the Socratic method. There's only one or two politicians that are actually asking penetrating questions. Most of the politicians are falling in line without due consideration and questioning and thinking. The media are promoting an inert sheep herd mentality without proper discourse, dialogue, and analysis. And there are few people in the media, whether it be in the Daily Mail or any other place, that are actually willing to ask questions, although there are one or two. So my qualification is I'm willing to ask questions. I just want to ask questions. That's all I'm doing. And things do not make sense. This Cuomo guy wanting to bring in this law It does not make sense, and it is logically dangerous against democracy that people in New York, politicians, want to bring in this nonsense in. That is all I'm asking for. I'm asking you to question the narrative. I'm asking you, well, you can leave, but at least you've got freedom to leave. You've got the freedom to leave and disagree with me. God bless you, have a good day. But you've got the freedom to leave and disagree with me. But those who disagree with the lockdown do not have the freedom to disagree. But you've got the freedom to disagree with me. But I've not got the freedom to disagree with you. Those who are against the lockdown, those who are against people like Andrew Cuomo, they do not have the right to disagree. And there's the problem. That is the problem. Because what we have done, we have moved into communism and to a socialist communism, well, a communist fascist nightmare. That's what's happened. And this video is to say, is to keep you, is to fight this. You have to fight it. I think we have to fight it. We have to fight this tooth and nail. I do not believe that they're telling us the truth, but let's imagine that they are telling the truth, for argument's sake. We still have to fight for our freedoms. We still have to be vigilant. We still have to push back against this censorship. We have to push back against the governments that are trying to take away our freedom. We have to push back. Those in New York and in America have to push back against people like Governor Andrew Cuomo. We have to push back and fight these people because we cannot allow them to take our freedoms away. We cannot stand by and allow these people to take our freedoms away. We have to push back and we have to fight. We have to challenge them, question them, tell them to give us the facts, tell them to give us the evidence, tell them to be consistent. It's no good Andrew Cuomo, wanted to bring in this draconian law, yet his own brother of CNN, broke the lockdown rules. So Cuomo's trying to bring in a draconian law to shut down free speech, yet his own brother disobeyed the lockdown. So I'm saying you've got to fight. If you're in Australia, you've got to fight. If you're in America, you've got to fight. If you're in Canada, you've got to fight. If you're in Britain, you've got to fight. You've got to fight with the Socratic method. You've got to ask questions and encourage people to ask questions and push back by telling people to ask questions and to think for themselves and look for the evidence and the data and not to the mainstream narrative. People have to fight for their democracies again. If this coronavirus is as bad as they say it is, it still doesn't warrant what's being done concerning our freedoms. And the tragedy is, sorry, I've got something. The tragedy is, my friends, is that if we do not fight back, it could be that we wake up one morning and the world that we once knew has gone forever. We are in the fight of our lives. Those who believe in freedom are in the fight for their lives. Those who believe in democracy and free speech are in the battle for their lives. We are in the most vicious, sadistic battle for freedom since in history. Our enemy is implacable, and our enemy does not care one iota and will slaughter you. This is what we're seeing here. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo bringing in a draconian law. That is a slaughtering law that if you even speak out, you can be arrested, put in prison for 2 months without any legal recourse. That is slaughtering you. That is just absolutely decimating you. The police at the moment, The police at the moment in Britain, they arrest you if you go on the anti-lockdown rallies, and they will smash your skull in. These are vicious times where they're not playing around. These people, they are out to destroy our democracies, and they will do everything they can to take us down. And we've got to fight back. We have to fight back. And the way we fight back is we start to challenge the narrative. We start to push back and ask questions. We start to push back on them. We can't allow this to happen. Yes, if the coronavirus is as bad as they say, we do all the medical things that people need to do, but still we have to push back because they're taking away our freedoms. And if they take it away completely, let me tell you this, they will keep the keys. They will keep the keys, and they will lock you up and throw away the key. And you'll never ever see Britain as Britain was a few years ago. You will never see America the way America was a few years ago. We are in the biggest fight for our freedoms in history. This is the biggest fight for freedom in our history, and we have to fight. Every one of us has to stand together and rally together and fight this. We fight it by challenging the narrative, asking questions. Ask them questions, bring them to the fire, hold them to account. I'm afraid that by the time people wake up, it will be too late. By the time the British people wake up, it will be too late. But we who know what is going on, we mustn't stay silent. We mustn't keep quiet. We must ask questions, and we must challenge people. I want it on record. That if the coronavirus is as bad as they say is, do what the judicious, wise thing to do is medically on those issues. But when it comes to our freedoms, they are not up for debate. They're not up for discussion. There are some inalienable basic rights that we must push back on and defend. And one of the rights is freedom of speech. One of the rights is freedom of religion. One of the rights is freedom to earn your own living, to work and to look after your own family. These are basic rights. That if you take away those liberties, you have nothing left. And we have to defend those rights. We have to push back and we have to fight hard. Because if we don't fight hard, I'm telling you, we're walking into a fascist nightmare. So I suggest you start websites. I suggest you start think tanks. I suggest you start contacting your MPs. I suggest you start contacting journalists. I suggest you start being a journalist yourself. I suggest you start going to different social media where there isn't as much censorship. And I suggest you start the process of fighting back by questioning and challenging the narrative. Because at the end of the day, they can't silence truth. You know something? Let me explain to you how we're being lied to. I was feeling a bit dizzy yesterday. And one of my family members said, look, you need to get tested for COVID-19. So they got in touch with the test centre. The test centre said to my family member, thinking it's them, oh, you need to go home and get someone to test you, right? So they thought, this is strange. I could be dying of COVID-19 and they've just told me to, I'm at a test centre and they've just told me to go home and get one of my family members to test me. So they thought that was very, very strange. Then the person understood what my family member was saying, and they said, well, get that person to phone up this number. So I phoned up the number. The person on the line said, can I help you? I said, yeah, I need testing. I might have COVID-19, right? The person said, why, what's your symptoms? I said, I feel a bit faint. I told the situation. And he said, oh, that's very peculiar. That's a very strange thing. And I thought to myself, look, I don't want to phone you. One of my family members has told me to phone you. I don't want to phone you. This is what I'm thinking. And I'm thinking, you are not serious. You are not serious. What you should say is, look, that's not a symptom, don't worry about it. But to mock me, to not take it seriously, I thought this is very, very strange. So, what's going on? What is going on? Two tests, a phone call to the test centre, a visit to the test centre, both places are not serious about what they're doing. This is in real life. This is what happened yesterday. Now, don't let me get me wrong. I know that there are people died of COVID-19, and I know that people are dying from COVID-19, and we're sad about that, and we respect that. But let's have some rational thinking and rational discourse here. So I'll come back to this New York situation and I'll finish. New York, Governor Andrew Cuomo wants to bring in a law, it might have happened today, where you can be arrested if he thinks, and his commissioners, you are a danger to public health. You can be arrested and you can be incarcerated for 2 months without any legal recourse. I think that is disgusting, and I think that is another example of the erosion of our democracy in the West, our democracies in the West. And all the other symptoms, Ofcom in Britain, Twitter and the social media, clamping down on people, the lack of accountability with politicians not discussing, the lack of freedom of worship, freedom to run your own business, the inane contradictions within what they say. Do you remember Fauci said of the World Health Authority, wear a mask, don't wear a mask, then wear a mask. Do you remember that right at the beginning? Oh, wear a mask, and then he said, oh, don't wear a mask, and then wear a mask. And all through this, there's been tons and tons of contradictions and hypocrisies where they brought in these draconian laws, and yet the millionaires are having dining meals, sitting with their friends with no social distancing. Politicians and the media sitting down, having meals with their family, with their friends, cocktails, no social distancing, no mask, and yet they're bringing in the draconian laws. Another example is Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi, who just recently castigated people in the House of Representatives for not obeying the COVID-19 rules in the House of Representatives, yet she was having her hair done at a salon when she shouldn't have been out because of the lockdown. So another example of hypocrisy among these politicians. So what is the bottom line of this video? It's been going on for 43 minutes. The bottom line of this video is, all I'm saying in this video is be vigilant. Maybe this COVID-19 is as bad as they say it is. I don't think it is, but maybe it is. I don't know. I don't think it is. But still, we have to be vigilant concerning our freedoms. And the power that these politicians have taken now because of this is dangerous, and it's taking away our freedoms. And we've ushered in communism. God bless you.